Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, God's ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are his ways higher than ours. We quote that verse in Isaiah like it's a sweet saying, but have you ever had to live it? Have you ever had to walk through something that didn't make sense, where the math didn't add up? The doors didn't open, and the timing felt all wrong. Yet God still whispered, trust me. See, we like predictable. We like logical. We like measurable, tangible, explainable. But God is not bound by our human understanding. He does not submit his strategies to our scrutiny. He doesn't call a committee meeting in heaven before he moves in your life. And if you're waiting for it all to make sense before you trust him, you're going to miss the miracle, because God specializes in the unorthodox. He does things that confound the wise. He uses mud to open blind eyes. He parts seas with a rod. He raises the dead after 4 days just to prove that he's not limited by time or decay. You've got to trust him. Even when it doesn't feel good, even when it doesn't look good, even when your heart is broken and your plans have fallen apart. That's the test of real trust. That's when faith goes from being a church word to being a lifeline. That's when it gets into your bones and your breath, and you say, God, I don't get it, but I'm going to walk with you anyway. Some of you have been asking, Lord, why did you take me this way? You thought he was going to open the Red Sea before you left Egypt, but God doesn't always part the waters until your feet touch it. You thought the promotion would come after the prayer, but instead you got silence. You thought healing would come in the moment you believed, but instead you're still waiting. Can I tell you something? Trust is forged in the waiting room. It's built in the silence. It's formed in the confusion. Because real trust says, even when I don't understand, I will still obey. Even when I don't see the evidence, I will still walk in faith. We want clarity, but God is after surrender. We want control, but God wants our hearts. He will lead you in ways that make no sense to shake you out of self-dependence. He will shut doors you thought you needed and open ones you weren't even looking at. Why? Because he's teaching you to lean not on your own understanding. That's not just a verse. It's a strategy for survival. Don't get stuck trying to map out what God is doing. Some of you are tired, not because you're not faithful, but because you're trying to carry the burden of understanding instead of the blessing of trusting. Let it go. Let go of needing the blueprint. Let go of needing the why. Trust the one who sees the end from the beginning. He is Alpha and Omega. He was there when you started, and he will be there when it's finished. And while you're trying to skip the process, God is trying to shape your character. While you're asking him to remove the storm, he's trying to reveal his power in the storm. You think it's the end, but it's only the middle. And in the middle is where trust is born. It's where your faith gets muscle. It's where your praise becomes warfare. So stand still, stand firm, and trust God's ways. They may not be your ways. They may not make sense. But they will always, always be right. Delay is not denial. Just because it hasn't happened, yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. We serve a God who operates outside of time, but we live inside of it. And because of that, we often assume that if something doesn't come when we expect it, it must not be coming at all. But God is not a microwave. He's a master builder. He's not interested in shortcuts. He's committed to strength. And when he delays with divine purpose. Some of you are in a season right now where you're questioning God's silence. You're wondering if he heard your prayer, if he saw your tears, if he noticed your sacrifice. You've fasted, you've prayed, you've believed, and still nothing seems to be moving. But I came to tell you that heaven's silence does not mean heaven's denial. God is working behind the curtain. Just because you can't see him doesn't mean he's not moving. There is a weight to glory. There is a timing to destiny. And if you receive something too early, it can crush you. That's why God sometimes holds it back. Not because he's punishing you, but because he's protecting you. He will never give you a promise that your character can't carry. So while you're asking for the blessing, he's developing the strength. While you're praying for the door to open, he's making sure that what's behind it won't destroy you when you walk through. We think delay is God forgetting us. No, delay is often God forming us. Look at Joseph, thrown in a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned. 13 years passed from the dream to the palace. 13 years of silence, of setbacks, of struggle. But in that delay, God wasn't denying Joseph. He was preparing him. He was building resilience. He was teaching him how to manage adversity so that he could later manage abundance. And let me tell you this, if God gave you the dream, he hasn't forgotten it. He's not like people. He doesn't lose interest. He doesn't move on. What he starts, he finishes. If the promise came from him, then it's just a matter of time. But time is not the enemy. Time is a tool in God's hand. And when you learn to trust his timing, you'll stop striving in your own strength. You'll rest. You knowing that delay doesn't mean denial. It means design. Some of you are like Martha and Mary, waiting on Jesus to show up. You said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And yet, Jesus delayed on purpose. He didn't come late. He came after Lazarus died, so that he could reveal a greater glory. If he had come when they wanted him to, they would have seen a healing. But because he came in his own time, they saw a resurrection. So what if God's delay in your life is not about what you're losing, but what he's about to reveal? What if the very thing you think is dead is just sleeping until the right moment for God to awaken it? Don't bury what God is planning to resurrect. Don't walk away from the place of promise just because the clock doesn't match your expectation. Time belongs to him. Seasons shift by his voice. Trust him. Trust that if he's holding it back, it's for your good. Trust that if he's quiet, he's still watching. Trust that delay does not mean you're forgotten. It means something is being aligned. Something you can't yet see. Something your heart isn't ready for. Something your hands aren't strong enough to carry. But it's coming. And when it comes, it will make sense why you had to wait. The glory will be worth it. The joy will be full. And you'll look back and say, if it hadn't been for the delay, I wouldn't have seen the miracle. So don't faint. Don't quit. Don't let impatience steal your promise. Delay is not denial. It's destiny on hold, waiting for the appointed time. Sometimes, when we think God is leading us into blessing, he leads us into barrenness. Not because he's cruel, but because he's cultivating something deeper. He doesn't always take us the easy way. He takes us the necessary way. And often, that way leads through the wilderness. Yes, the dry place. The place where nothing seems to grow, where prayers feel unanswered, where resources dry up and clarity disappears. But hear me, the wilderness is not a punishment. It's preparation. God led the children of Israel out of Egypt, not straight into the promised land, but through the wilderness. He could have taken them a shorter route, but he didn't. Why? Because while they were free from Pharaoh, they were still slaves in their minds. God had to take them through the wilderness to break what Egypt had built in them. He had to transform them from a people who survived under oppression into a people who could stand in promise. You may feel lost right now, like the path you're on has led you further from the promise rather than closer to it. But don't mistake God's process for his absence. The wilderness is where he teaches you to trust him when there's no manna yet, no signs yet, no direction yet. That's where he strips away every crutch, every distraction, every idol, until all you have left is him. And then you realize he's all you needed to begin with. Some of the most profound lessons are learned in isolation. Some of the deepest growth happens in obscurity. In the wilderness, you're not being abandoned. You're being refined. It's where your heart is tested, your faith is stretched, and your obedience becomes pure. Because in the wilderness, you don't serve God for what he gives. You serve him for who he is. God will allow the wilderness to burn off the fluff, to show you what you really believe. It's easy to shout when the promise is in view. But can you trust when it's nowhere in sight? Can you worship when you're thirsty? Can you walk when your feet are tired? Can you obey when you don't feel anything? Because that's where trust is built. Not on the mountaintop, but in the valley. Not in abundance, but in lack. Even Jesus had a wilderness. Before the miracles, before the ministry, the Spirit led him into the wilderness to be tested. If the Son of God had to go through the wilderness, who are we to expect the shortcut? There's something sacred about the season where it's just you and God. No spotlight, no crowd, just surrender. You might feel like nothing is happening in your life, like everything's on pause. But God is doing more in your wilderness than you know. He's preparing your spirit for what your eyes can't yet see. He's building endurance, sharpening discernment, and teaching you to move with his voice, not your impulse. Because the wilderness teaches you to follow cloud by day and fire by night. It teaches you dependence, not on your gift, not on your connections, but on his provision alone. Don't despise the dry season. Don't rush to escape it. Let it do its work. Let it purify your motives. Let it deepen your roots. Because when God brings you out, you'll come out with more than a testimony. You'll come out with authority. The kind of authority that doesn't just shout about faith, but walks it, breathes it, lives it. This journey isn't just about the destination. It's about who you become along the way. The wilderness may feel lonely, but it's holy ground. It's where the noise stops and the voice of God becomes clear. So don't fear it. Embrace it. God is not trying to hurt you. He's trying to prepare you. And if you can trust him in the wilderness, you'll be ready to walk in the promise. We walk by faith, not by sight. That sounds beautiful until you're the one walking and you can't see where your next step is going to land. Until the lights go out, the doors stay shut, and everything familiar disappears. That's when you discover that faith isn't just a concept. It's a lifestyle. Trusting God means moving when you don't have all the details. It means stepping when the ground still looks shaky. It means saying, I ask to God before you see how it's going to work out. There are moments in life when God won't show you the whole picture. He'll give you a word, a glimpse, a nudge, and that's it. He'll tell you to start walking without telling you where the road ends. And in those moments, your sight can become your biggest enemy because sight will tell you it's too risky. Sight will remind you of past failures. Sight will say, this doesn't make sense. But faith says, if God said go, I'll go, even if I don't see how it's going to work. Some of you are waiting for a sign before you move. But what if your step of faith is the sign God is waiting for? What if the breakthrough is on the other side of obedience? What if the miracle doesn't show up until your feet hit the water? Just like the priests in Joshua's day. When they stepped into the Jordan, the water parted, but not before. Not while they were thinking about it. Not while they were talking about it. It parted when they walked in faith. We've gotten so used to needing proof that we've forgotten how to trust. We want confirmation, but God wants commitment. He's not obligated to show you everything up front. Because if you could see it all, it wouldn't be faith. And God is not building comfort in you. He's building confidence in Him. It's easy to trust God when you're holding the blessing. But can you trust Him when all you're holding is a promise? Can you keep walking when you're tired, when you're unsure, when people around you don't understand what you're doing? Because the walk of faith is lonely sometimes. It's not always popular. It's not always visible, but it is powerful because every step you take in faith moves you closer to what God has spoken over your life. Abraham had to leave everything familiar just on a word. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew who was leading. And that was enough. Can that be enough for you? Not the outcome, not the timeline, just Him. Just knowing that if God is with you, that's all the certainty you need. Faith is not the absence of doubt. It's the decision to keep walking in spite of it. It's when fear shows up and you say, I'm going anyway. It's when the storm doesn't calm, but you step out of the boat. It's when you give when you barely have enough. It's when you apply again after rejection. Faith isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet, steady yes in your soul. A yes that won't give up. A yes that keeps walking. A yes that trusts God more than it trusts feelings. And let me tell you something. God honors faith. He rewards it. He responds to it. Not because you earned it, but because faith puts you in agreement what He already decided. So don't stop walking. Don't let what you see talk you out of what He said. Don't let fear freeze your feet. Walk by faith. Walk when it's dark. Walk when it's unclear. Walk when it hurts. And every step you take is a declaration. God, I trust your ways more than I trust what I see. Sometimes we say we trust God, but what we really mean is we trust Him, as long as we understand Him. As long as His instructions make sense. As long as the path looks logical. As long as we can calculate the outcome. But the truth is, obedience often comes before understanding. God doesn't always explain Himself before He moves. He doesn't owe us an explanation. He asks for trust. When God told Noah to build an ark, there was no rain, no sign of a flood. No evidence that would justify that kind of obedience. But Noah built it anyway. Why? Because he trusted the voice more than the weather. He trusted what God said more than what he saw. Some of us are waiting to understand before we act. But real trust means moving even when the reason isn't clear. Faithful obedience is the seed. Understanding is often the fruit, and it doesn't always grow overnight. There are seasons when God will give you instructions that seem foolish in the eyes of the world. He'll tell you to forgive someone who never apologized. He'll ask you to stay when everyone else says leave. He'll lead you to give when your resources are already stretched. And in those moments, your mind will wrestle. You'll say, God, this doesn't make sense. And he'll say, I didn't ask you to understand. I asked you to trust. Our God is not interested in your comfort. He's committed to your transformation. And obedience is how he shapes you. Every time you say yes without seeing the full picture, your faith muscles grow. Every time you follow his word over your own reasoning, your roots go deeper. And the deeper your roots, the greater the fruit. Look at Peter. Jesus told him to cast his net on the other side after he had fished all night and caught nothing. Peter was tired. He was a professional fisherman. He had every reason to argue, but he said, nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. And when he obeyed, the net overflowed. See, the miracle was on the other side of obedience. The provision didn't come when he understood. It came when he obeyed. You may be standing at a crossroads right now. You've been praying, asking for clarity, asking for confirmation. But God is saying, I already gave you a word. Now walk it out. Understanding may come later. It may not come at all. But obedience is not about understanding. It's about surrender. It's about trusting that God sees what you don't, knows what you can't, and has already gone ahead of you. Don't let your need for control rob you of your calling. Some of the most powerful moves of God will start with a simple act of obedience. Just a yes. A yes that costs you something. A yes that stretches your logic. A yes that says, even if I don't get it, I'll do it because you said it. That kind of yes moves heaven. And let me tell you, hindsight will always reveal what obedience couldn't explain. One day, you'll look back and thank God you obeyed when you didn't understand. You'll see how every step fit together. You'll see how his hand was in it all along. But that vision comes later. For now, you obey. Obedience is not weakness. It's the highest form of worship. It says, God, I trust you more than I trust me. I trust your ways more than my reasoning. I choose your voice over my logic. That's real faith. That's mature trust. And when you obey like that, even in the dark, even in the unknown, you give God room to do the miraculous. So don't wait for it all to make sense. Just say yes. Move forward. Walk it out. Because the blessing is on the other side of obedience. And God is too wise to mislead you. Sometimes trusting God's ways means releasing the outcome completely into his hands. It means letting go of what you thought it should look like, how you thought it would turn out, when you thought it would happen. And that's not easy, especially when you've poured your heart, your time, your energy into something. When you've prayed until your voice went hoarse, and still it didn't unfold the way you hoped. But there comes a moment in every believer's life where you must choose surrender over certainty. We don't like surrender because it feels like weakness. It feels like quitting. But in the kingdom of God, surrender is power. It's the moment you stop wrestling with God and start walking with Him. It's the moment you say, not my will, but yours be done. And that's not a passive phrase. It's a powerful declaration of trust. You may not understand the path, but you can trust the one who made it. He sees what you can't. He knows what's ahead. And while you're trying to hold everything together, God is asking you to place it in His hands. Not just the good parts, the messy parts too. The broken dreams, the closed doors, the silent seasons. That's what real trust looks like, not just celebrating the victory, but surrendering the uncertainty. Some of us are so focused on the outcome that we've forgotten who we're walking with. We're trying to fix it, force it, figure it out. And God is saying, will you trust me enough to let go? Let go of the timeline. Let go of the plan. Let go of the pressure. Because what God wants to build in you is not dependent on perfect conditions. It's rooted in total dependence. Jesus modeled this on the cross. He didn't just endure the suffering. He surrendered to the Father's will. He said, into your hands I commit my spirit. That's what trust looks like at the highest level. Not when everything's going right, but when everything's going wrong and you still say, God, I trust you with the outcome. You might be praying for something that hasn't happened yet. You might be grieving a door that God closed. You might be asking why it turned out the way it did. But can I remind you that surrender doesn't mean you failed. It means you're free. Free from the need to control everything. Free from the burden of outcomes. Free to walk in peace knowing that God is still writing the story. And trust me, He writes better endings than we do. What you thought was rejection was actually redirection. What felt like loss was actually God making room. What looked like the end was simply a turning point. But you only see that when you let go of the pen and stop trying to author what only God can finish. You don't have to understand everything to trust God in everything. You just have to be willing to release it. That relationship, that job, that plan, that timeline, whatever it is that you've been gripping with both hands, release it. Because as long as your hands are full, God can't place anything new in them. And when you release the outcome, you create space for peace. You make room for God to do what only He can do. You give yourself permission to rest, not because you've figured it out, but because you've surrendered it. And that kind of rest is sacred. That kind of rest is a weapon. It says, God is in control, and I don't have to be. So today, let go. Not because you've given up, but because you've chosen to trust. Trust that He's working even when you can't see it. Trust that He's good even when it doesn't feel like it. Trust that His ways are higher, deeper, and always right. Because when you truly trust God's ways, surrender becomes strength, and the outcome becomes His responsibility, not yours.